Welcome back to the Berg podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Joining me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And Brad.
How's it going?
And Brad's our first internal guest to the podcast, the first person on the podcast that's an employee of Berg Construction, but not, and not one of our partners or vendors. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity. Not everyone gets the chance to work with Brad, unfortunately, right? Because we enjoy it so much thoroughly. But not everyone gets a chance to interact with Brad that much. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk about who is Brad, what's Brad do, what role does he play at Berg Construction, and how did he get here? So, and I started thinking about this one and how we all sort of got here, actually, because it's not maybe as straightforward as some would normally think. Each one of us came from outside of the excavation world. And that's actually probably, and Ford's not here, so we can talk about him a little bit, but that's probably a tribute in some sense to Ford, because Ford's seen sort of a vision of finding the right people, and that's how our organization's grown, not necessarily always the right or the same experience. And so I thought that was interesting, Brad. I thought we should, maybe start there, because you did not come from excavation, although you did have a construction background.
Yeah, for sure. So, before I came to Berg, I spent about 12 years in residential development. So taking it from where we do now, site development, to completing the community. So building the houses, finishing the community centers, all kinds of stuff like that. So dealing with customers, dealing with people, homeowners, that kind of stuff. So after 12 years of that, I kind of wanted to move to the commercial side of stuff. Go with a less huge corporate company. So those were kind of things I was looking for. And that's kind of how I landed myself here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was actually starting with when Brad's first day. Brad will forever be the most well-dressed person we ever hired. So he came in, I don't know that my wedding day I was dressed as nice as Brad was on that particular day. It was impressive. Yeah, it was an impressive outfit.
I don't recall this. Maybe you can describe it for us.
I believe it was blue. It was definitely a suit.
It's the only one that I have that fits me still.
It was blue, white shirt, nice tie. He had a book with him to write notes down, and he's very prepared. Yeah, very prepared.
Well, you did it right. I mean, you show up for an interview, you dress to impress.
Yeah,
so. I do a fair amount of interviewing, but only for specific positions. So I always kind of warn people. I'm like, hey, we are a little more casual than business. You don't have to put on a jacket. Or our vendors start to figure it out too. When they show up, our vendors stopped wearing ties and jackets because they know that it's like a red flag, right? If you shoot a flare off at the end of the driveway and say, I'm trying to sell you something. So, yeah.
We also, the other thing about Brad coming on board was, so Brad has some history, though not directly with Ford, in terms of Ford. Brad's sister is friends with Ford from when they were younger, but Ford did not know, nor did I, that Nikki was Brad's sister, and we didn't know there was any relationship. So Brad wanted to, after the fact, Brad said to me, it was really important that I didn't do that, because I wanted you to want to bring me on board because you wanted me to work here, not because you knew somebody who would recommend me.
That's admirable. I mean, I would definitely have played the connection.
No, I mean, if you remember, I think I sent you a text afterwards, just saying like I wasn't trying to hide anything from you. I just didn't want that to be a driving force.
Yeah.
So
no, I do remember that.
I didn't want any handouts.
So we're going to introduce, now that we've introduced Brad's extended, his family, let's talk a little bit about Brad's personal life. So Brad, introduce yourself to the rest of our audience. Go on.
Come on. What do you want?
I think about it. All right. So, did you grow up in the area?
So not directly in the area. So Boyertown area, not too far away. My parents are from the area. After I graduated high school, they moved to Elverson. I never really resided there other than winter break and stuff like that. So I got wife of 15 years now.
Nice. Impressive.
Two boys, 8 and 5. So they take up most of my time now. They're starting to get into sports.
I've met your wife, and so I know that she's tolerated you for 15 years.
Yeah, it's impressive. They always say, I way outkicked my coverage on
Yeah.
that one. So
It's something that we actually talk about on a fairly regular basis. For some reason, we've
all outkicked our coverage,
tricked our wives into not only marrying us, but staying with us.
Yeah, they didn't run away.
They haven't run away yet.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So grew up relatively in the area. You said came home on break. So you went to school?
Yep. So I went to Albright College in Reading, 4 years there, 4.5 years there. Ironically enough, so I have 2 degrees, one in accounting, one in criminology. So you can see.
Both very relevant.
Yeah. So
nice work.
College, definitely go to college. It's it gives you everything you need.
I think you'd be surprised how much you might need accounting and criminology as a project manager. Though.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, the accounting certainly, I'm sure, is helpful, right? I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, so the backstory on that, the idea when I was in school was, to get a job working like white collar crime, that kind of stuff. So, and right out of school, I got had a friend that worked for the big home builder that I worked for, just one of the who you know, not what you know people, and made me an offer and then never looked back from there.
And that was your introduction into construction.
Yeah. So no FBI for me.
Yeah, no white collar crime. Although, I mean, sometimes we feel like we're dealing with criminals.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean,
that helps with the GCs.
The GCs. I was just going to say, when you talk about white collar crime, sometimes it feels like we're like playing bank for GCs.
Yeah.
So
that's most of our projects are financed by Berg Construction.
Could get criminal at some point. Yeah, and so for those of our listeners who don't know or haven't had the chance to work with you as much, kind of describe a little bit about your role here. You oversee our commercial division. So
yep. So in title, commercial division manager. So for those that know me, I'm not big on titles and the box they put you in. So my role here is to oversee day to day, but really it's just to support the guys in whatever capacity they need to be successful in their job. So whether that's getting them the materials they need, supporting them on the back end with invoicing, trucking, scheduling, really just, being willing to do whatever they need to help them succeed in their jobs.
And I think that's there's Brad's being a little humble here in some ways, but I think that's a testament to our team in general. But, Brad, when he says like do anything, there's been plenty of times where Brad's been right there in the ditch with everybody else, holding the shovel, doing the work. Right. So, and I guess that's actually true of a lot of our folks. Really, we're like a mid-sized company that acts like a small business in a lot of ways, but wants to play within the bigger business world with some of the larger GCs, et cetera. And one of the only ways we really get to do that is by asking people at times to wear a lot of hats. So, you talk about by title, and we all have titles, but I would imagine that on any given day that each one of us is involved in something that does not technically or would not traditionally fall under our title. So.
Sure.
Yeah, it's that's become a hallmark of us that we even when we went away from in the hiring process, went away from the idea of hiring someone as an operator or a laborer. All of our guys are operator laborers because we speak to the fact that on any given day you could be doing anything. Your name is not on a piece of equipment that you're just going to sit there and run for the next 20 years, and that goes all the way right to the top. I mean, today we're recording a podcast and Ford's in a piece of equipment. And he's going to be there 10 hours because he was covering for somebody who had to get some training. So we felt like the training was valuable, but the schedule demanded that we have more people on the ground. So Ford stepped right up. He's in a piece of equipment somewhere working today. So, it's top to bottom. It doesn't matter really who it is. I mean, you watch Tracy jump around in roles. Brad covers dispatcher at times. Sometimes he's out in the shop. Other times he's running snow sites. Sometimes it's commercial. He does just about everything right down to when he's jumping in a ditch. He's another one of us who didn't necessarily have a whole lot of equipment background. So it's not necessarily beneficial to say, that Brad should jump in a track hoe or a dozer, but he jumps in a ditch. He'll do anything that needs be, run around and get supplies. So you put all those people together, with Ford being able to identify certain skill sets and certain, behaviors and tendencies, and you really end up with a company who just gets stuff done.
Yeah, and sometimes in untraditional ways, right? I mean, we took a guy who's experienced, like Brad, with doing things from the ground up, and put him in a role where he's in charge of things that happen from the ground down. Um, so talking about that commercial division a little bit, give some folks or our listeners here general scope of what the commercial division does. What kind of projects do you get into?
So from the ground down is really a good, description. When I, in my personal life, when people ask me, I said, hey, if you ever go onto a Walmart or a Target or anything like that, anything from your boots down is kind of our specialty. So, land clearing, bulk dirt work, utilities, storm work, stormwater management, erosion control, pavement, and concrete, is kind of the main things what we do. So obviously we get into some niche projects outside of that, but that's really, commercial pad sites is our bread and butter.
A lot of people do get confused by that construction label, right? I mean, it's rightfully so. Construction's everything. But a lot of times my friends personally, they'll be like, "Oh, you work for a construction company?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, what do you build? I'm like, well, we don't erect anything. Everything happens below the surface, and then they giggle like middle schoolers because I said the word erect. But
that happens to me, with the girls. I'll drive around with the girls and I'll say, we do a lot of work in the area where I live, and I'll say like, oh, we built that, and they're like, you built a building, and I was like, no, we've been over this. We don't build buildings. We did everything so they could build the building, and they just sort of look at me and look at the site, and they don't know what to do with this. Okay, that's so. They're unclear on exactly what it is that we do still. I mean, they know they like to, they're really fortunate. Actually, it's funny, Brad says about his kids, but the girls will get to see our equipment around, because of where we are. And so there'll be times on the weekends when I'll go over and like let them, climb up on a machine or sit on it, or we look at it, and, and so it's, they're not like your average girls because of that, but Brad's boys are like average boys. So that's one of my favorite things, honestly, in the office is when you get to hear a Brad story about the boys. It used to be Bryan. Bryan used to have to lead with Gavin's stories, but Gavin's sort of grown up and he's, matured, and, either you can't know the story and you don't even know the story, or there is no story. But Brad still got some stories that if you get Brad, on a site somewhere and you have a couple minutes and you can get Brad to talk about the boys that day, he won't have to go very many days back to give you a story to get you laughing. So.
Yeah, we live in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and especially my youngest, but my boys are not afraid of nudity. So there's been days where I've come home to a naked child, peeing in the woods outside. Not uncommon, but completely acceptable where I live. So
it's normal. It'd be weird if they weren't peeing in the woods.
Yeah, for sure.
Brad, as your role has changed here, and it has changed since you started with us. As your role's changed here, talk a little bit about what that's meant for you. I know it's involved a little more maybe professional development.
Yeah, for sure. So, coming from a background that's mostly operational, construction, boots on the ground, most days out of the week. And then too, when I got here, it was, every day you guys, you might see me an hour in the office or a couple hours here, a couple hours there, to, more recently, probably more in the office than in the field, with Scott taking over his role and doing a good job at that, and kind of running the day-to-day in the field. So it really, you got to kind of pull up a little bit and start looking at stuff, from a little bit higher view, the 30,000 foot view, instead of worrying about, this week and next week, worrying about the next 6 months, where the money is, that kind of stuff. And then just, broaden your horizons and experiences and stuff you may not have done in the past, learning those new things, being open to trying different techniques and different styles of stuff. Ford always gives us books, and he always jokes. He's like, well, you can either read it or, use it to prop up a piece of furniture or whatever he feels the most beneficial. So, but there's always, not everything's going to translate, but there's always something in those that, that he wants you to get. He won't tell you what he wants you to get, but he wants you to get something out of it. So, just being open to all those things.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a little bit about what some folks maybe don't know about Brad. You know, I mean, a lot of us have gotten to know you here at work. What do we not know about Brad? I don't need any deep, dark secrets. So don't go too crazy.
I've been trying to get this for some time because Brad has friends that he went to school with who are friends with my wife. Now the other husbands are friends with my wife.
You're looking for a little dirt.
And so, if you went to college, or if you didn't, you were still 18 to 21 at some point, and you probably did something that, people don't know about, but Brad's like a lockbox. He won't give me any dirt on anybody else. He won't give me, we got close the other night. So the other night, Brad actually invited us, and Bryan and I went to a concert with Brad and a couple of Brad's friends, and Brad brought up that I knew this other one of his friends, John, and so the guy was like, "Well, there's not a lot of crazy stories about John. I mean, now me and Brad, we could tell you." And Brad was like, "Whoa!" So he almost accidentally opened the box on Brad, but Brad shut it down.
Brad almost got thrown under the bus by his buddies.
By his own buddy.
He invited us, his work friends, and sometimes the work friend, personal life friend, worlds collide a little bit. We got close. We got close,
but I don't know. I don't know that he's going to give you anything here.
Worlds colliding. One of the things that I learned about Brad pretty early on was that we share similar tastes in music at times, right? Talking about concerts. Brad and I tend to both go towards the heavier side of music at times. Dan referenced a show we all went to other night, Dropkick Murphys, right? Which is actually a little on the lighter side for some of Brad's musical tastes.
Yeah, a little on the heavier side for my musical taste. It was pointed out to me by Justin Boyer said that maybe what I really liked is Dropkick Murphys when they're with Run DMC. I said it wasn't that bad, but an entire show with 3 bands playing similar music to that was pretty harsh for me. It was kind of like Bryan at the end of a month. I don't know. Brad's not that familiar with it because he's downstairs. But as we get towards the end of a month and costs continue to come in and invoices might not be out, Bryan's musical tastes go, I don't know, what's the term, harder, darker, whatever you want, but it gets more guar, I always say to him. He says that's not accurate.
I don't actually listen to guar.
But he doesn't, but that's what I hear. So
but that's what you go towards.
That's what I hear.
That's what you feel
with me, we know. If I start to listen to like throwback hardcore rap, if NWA's on, something bad is happening. Like I'm not in a good mood. Either that or rage, one of those.
Yeah, that's so for me, it's actually like it could mean either thing. I could be having a great day, right? And then be listening to really heavy music. Are you the same? Like, does it trend one way or the other, Brad? Like, are you always like,
no,
does heavy mean good or heavy mean bad?
No, it doesn't mean anything. It just, it's whatever strikes you. It's anything from classic rock to country to heavy to, it's whatever the mood strikes. But it can be, when you're driving though, you look over and somebody's staring at you with like weird eyes and you're like, you realize like what you're listening to could come off.
Yeah.
That's what
were you singing along? Is that?
No, probably wouldn't catch me singing along. Okay. So, okay. But,
I do from time to time, or like, if there's a point of emphasis in the song, maybe I'm also emphasizing the point while I'm driving.
Yeah, I got 2 things here. I don't want to lose the second one, but the first one that strikes me here is Luke. And so now you're going, pretty far back in our history to Luke actually doing Snow. And Snow is something that pushes you. And near the end of it, you're just trying to figure out ways to stay awake. Your windows are definitely open. You're drinking a lot of cold beverages or coffee or something just to try and stay awake. And I would, go further into louder and louder music, on a site at 3 a.m. And I don't know what Brad does particularly, but Luke, when it really got serious and he was very tired, he was going to listen to Oldies 98. And I thought it was about the funniest thing I had, because that would put me to sleep right now. If you put it on right now, I'm probably going to lay on your couch and take a nap.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's funny because it does actually get Luke a little turned up. But the funniest part about that story is Luke generally only listens to music like on Fridays. Like he's like, it's Music Friday. Cranks up the oldies a little bit.
Yeah, he cranks it up. But the other thing I was thinking about is I'll give you a Brad story, a little Brad Dirt story here that I have because it's with us. So we were doing one of the peer groups that Brad and I are in, and we went down and it was in Nashville, which Nashville is a good time. And so we were already going to be there. And I said to Brad, hey, do you want to invite Becca and I'll take Aaron? We can pay for them to fly down.
Your spouses.
Our spouses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Personally, we'll take our spouses down. Then once we're done, we'll just stay for one extra day on the weekend. We can go out and be in Nashville, do whatever. And my wife, Erin, is like textbook accountant programmer. She's like completely buttoned down, but wear, like the nice white shirt, be all fancy. And then, there'd be a frat party or sorority party at our college and we don't want to get into it. And so Erin, we have 3 little girls. She doesn't really drink very much anymore. We go down there and we're in Nashville and we walked into this first bar, which is a place that I like. There's a lot of good music there. And she looks at Brad and me and she says, I'm going to get Brad drunk. And I now, my wife is not as tiny as Becca. Becca is tiny compared to Erin, but Erin is pretty thin, pretty light, and does not drink anymore. And Brad's a big guy. So right away, this is a bad choice. But she gave it the college try, trying to take Brad out, but it didn't work. No success. No.
Yeah. Cool. Brad, what else do you want to share? Anything as we wrap it up here?
No, I don't think so.
Brad's also a man of few words.
Yeah, that's Brad in a nutshell right there.
I don't think so. That's all I like to say. I tried to get Brad to talk about whether or not he does like karaoke. I said, you're holding the microphone for the podcast. Get close to your mouth like you're singing a song. He's like,
yeah, I don't do that.
No relation whatsoever.
This may have been the first time I've actually had him like.
Oh,
wow. Well, welcome. Welcome to the experience.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to catching you again soon. Have a good one.